All right, I think we will get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining. The numbers are starting to still trickle in a little bit, but it's slowing down enough that we can get things kicked off here. First off, thanks everybody for joining us. For those that I haven't met, my name's Scott Mann. I'm director for North American Channel, and today we have with us Blake Dickmeyer, who's one of our sales directors as well. Um, just before we get into the presentation, there is a Q&A box. And there's also the comments box. You can ask us questions in either of those throughout this, and we'll be sure to try to get them. If it's necessary to get it throughout the presentation, then we'll address it then. If not, we'll get to it all at the end. And for the format of today's presentations, for those that haven't joined any of our solution selling series before, what we're doing is we have a technical and a solution selling series. And what the purpose of both of them are is to take a topic and put a bit of a technical perspective and then a sales perspective on it. And the idea around it is really solution selling, to go beyond just talking about products and tell you guys, what the latest product that we have coming out is, and really educate you on how we educate our technical and sales teams to help them understand the solution that we're selling. Because a solution goes beyond just a product sale, right? It's not just a commodity replace. Instead of this, it's this. It's not apples to apples. It's understanding the actual needs that the customer has, whether it be environmental changes or something in their technology that they're trying to address. We want to help you understand this specific topic that we're addressing and how we can uncover opportunities together and what value that we bring together as a solution. So today's topic that we're addressing is business resilience. It's probably, if it's not a term that you've heard yet, it's one you're going to start hearing a lot. But there's a lot of different facets of business resilience. So the purpose of this is really to go through and break down what that really means and differentiate between the two things, between different components of it, like backup and disaster recovery. And there's no better person to do that than Blake Dickmeyer here. So I'm going to pass the ball over to Blake, and I'm going to let him run through our perspective on business resilience and really selling into that solution area. Blake, all yours.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, thank you. So as we dig into business resilience, really for the last decade, this has been most talked about as business continuity, disaster recovery. But as this year has proven, business resilience is emerged as this concept of the overall, how do you stand in terms of what you're able to overcome. So we'll start out with just a quick definition on what we think business resilience is. Instead of reading this off, the way I like to think about it, and something that jumped out to me every time I've really put thought into this topic, it goes back to, when you're in your middle school, junior high, health or PE class, the definition of fitness. So fitness is described as the capacity to carry out the day's activities without undue fatigue and the ability to meet emergency situations as they occur. Business resilience is a lot of the same thing. How quickly can you proactively plan for the organization to mitigate and adapt quickly to and effectively manage threats? So the biggest concept amongst this is business resilience is a journey. It's not a destination. Much like fitness is a journey, not a destination. It is something that you are always reassessing, looking at, and looking for ways to improve. So that's a theme that will carry throughout this. So digging into it, I just want to look back at where we've been as scale computing with business resilience over the years, and how it's continually evolved, and especially this year, what does it mean? So originally, when we started out with hyperconverged infrastructure, the goal of that was to create a platform where your VMs can live and run, but it's highly available. There's no single points of failure. This is stable infrastructure that you can trust to run your business on. And, you look back at 2012, that was pretty big. Before you were going out, you're buying host servers, you're getting a SAN, all of that, getting VMware with the idea of I can tolerate a host failure, or my SAN is redundant and HA, and if I lose one of the controllers, I've got a second controller, that kind of stuff. right? So we built that infrastructure at the production site to be redundant and highly available. At the same time, we're doing agent-based backups, those kinds of things. But we're really thinking about that in terms of local. That's how we can recover from. Well, after a while, we go and we add in replication, which gives us the ability to have a DR site. So we're replicating VMs to this DR site. Should production go down, we fail over to DR, we keep going. We're really using that as enhanced backup, right? We have this DR site. This is really taking the place of what we're hoping for out of our backup, and this is how we're going to handle it. And that's been great. DR is important. We've learned that over the years. It can be as easy as an air conditioner going out or a power failure at production, or as catastrophic as a fire or the smoking crater type of scenario. Then the need for people to have geographical protection came in, or maybe you don't have a second site. So we built in a cloud offering where we're housing an instance basically of a scale cluster in a Google data center. So that came out. Now we even have more DR capabilities, multiple options for what to do. All this time becoming more resilient as a business to withstand emergency situations. And then finally, as we're getting up to more present day, we're adding back in this local backup target, agentless backup, host-based, and really rounding out from an infrastructure perspective what a resilient infrastructure looks like. So that's just a little bit of the history as to where we've been, right? So 2020, what has changed? Well, pretty much everything. What happens to your business strategy if your employees can no longer come to the office? I remember March, showing up on Monday, thinking, all right, maybe we'll be home for a week or two. Haven't worked from the office since, and no real sign of going back anytime soon. So a lot has changed, and this has been something a lot of businesses have faced. And the first instinct people did is, all right, all of our computers, everybody runs on a desktop, so we need to go buy a bunch of laptops. Well, we'll get into why that isn't the best strategy a little later on, but a lot has changed and a lot's been learned this year for business resilience, and it no longer just pertains to your infrastructure. It extends out to employees. All right, so what do we need to do now? Well, now is a good time to look back at what is our business resilience strategy. What are we planning for? What are we not planning for? And how can we continue to improve? And here are some of the items that we need to be addressing in this strategy. If we look back, high availability, disaster recovery, we've been planning around that for a long time. That still remains. We really added in this work from anywhere VDI piece. This, and we'll get into more on it, but this is really a huge piece. What if your employees can't come to the office? How do we continue to work? And how do we do it in a secure manner that just isn't extending the VPN out to everybody's home network and creating new issues? Home networks are going to be the least secure place for the business to push their data to. So being able to protect against that is big. People tend to have different behaviors when they're working from home and what kind of internet traffic looks like than when they're in the office. So have we opened the VPN up to everybody's house and created a situation where they have different behaviors and that's all now going on the company network? Or can we create something where there's a browser-based portal essentially that people can get into, do their work on, but whatever else may be going on their home network is isolated from it and protected. And that goes into cybersecurity. This year we've seen ransomware attacks, malware, all sorts of issues, way more prevalent because everybody's a softer target this year. And so, that is a massive factor in business resilience. How are we planning for attacks, preventing attacks, and recovering should they happen? Covering that backup piece, as for scale, as we've integrated Acronis into the mix for agentless backup, that's a big piece, and we'll cover some more on that. And then scalability. This really wraps the whole conversation together. If I already have scale infrastructure deployed, for those that have, and I need to add in that VDI piece quickly, how do I do that? Do I have the room to do it on my existing cluster, or do I need to add nodes to do it? Having that ability to right size the resources required quickly and easily, that's a big piece. You're not standing up new infrastructure to be able to support these VDI users. All right, so this is probably more technical than we need to get into from a VDI front, but it's just a quick demonstration of how this can be achieved and managed. VDI can be set up on a scale cluster really quickly and easily, generally in less than an hour. And it is a secure way to have a bring your own device strategy for the company, where people can continue to work and function if they can't come to the office without having to go out and buy every single person a laptop. And then again, just extend that VPN out to where you're on everybody's home network or Wi-Fi, while extending the company network to them. So, VDI has really become an important piece of business resilience this year. All right, so backup and disaster recovery strategies. So why are we segmenting those? And we talked earlier about when we first brought out DR, DR is really, we're calling it enhanced backup, but they're very different. And having different strategies for each results in some optimization. So if you have the local backup piece, using that for backup, archival, a couple different ways of managing and retaining your data, and then on the DR side, you are sending your most current data over there and have a tighter retention schedule. You don't need to build as big of a DR site. You can have higher performing gear at the DR site. So, you fail over, there's less of an impact that people notice to the business in that DR scenario. While on the backup side, you're going cheap and deep on the storage, right? So in a lot of disk at a lot of storage, so you can have that archival piece and really retain a lot of data to meet what the demands are for the business, but you're not paying for it on the DR side. So you're getting the best of both worlds in that scenario. Higher performing DR, more long-term retention on the backup side. And then that allows you to really dial in, what are our recovery point objectives? What are our recovery time objectives? How can we best optimize those for the business?
I love about all of this. Before I get into the promos, which I also didn't mention that we're getting into promos and our platform event for 2021. But before I get into all of that, what I love about all this concept about business resilience is business resilience could be issues, problems, hazards, disasters that happen. It could be natural disaster, it could be technical, whatever it may be. And what we're trying to provide is a platform that is essentially an umbrella from all of those different disasters that are coming at your customers. And there are different ways, there are different paths of entry into conversations, and being that thought leader, that consultant for your customer, opening the door and having them think outside of what their norm is. And I think everybody going into this year has experienced that, the norm can't be something that we rely on, because that norm changes at the drop of a pin. And all of a sudden, we need to be protected for a scenario that we might not have been prepared for. So when you think of scale back in that very early stages, and we're that core infrastructure that Blake had shown, the qualifying questions that you're getting into the customer at that point is, when's your next server refresh? When's your next storage refresh? They weren't sexy questions to ask. They were pretty much just selling a product. Hey, we have this new product that can give you more value because it's going to save you cost, save you time. But now we're going beyond just that product, and we're trying to talk to what does the big picture look like for this organization? Yes, we can do that core infrastructure for you, but how are your end users going to connect into this core infrastructure when they're working from home? Can we provide that as part of a single solution so you don't have to go and add multiple vendors for that? Absolutely, we can. Now, what are you doing for your disaster recovery plan? What if there's a flood or something? We can provide you different solutions for that. Now, what about your backup needs? What if you need to do archival for 7 years or in perpetuity for video storage? Can we help you out with that? Absolutely, we can. So we give a platform where along their journey, they can start out maybe just as that core infrastructure, but they can build into the rest of that platform and build their business resiliency solution with us as that platform around them. And I think it's a much more comprehensive way to have a conversation with your customer.
Yeah, I mean, all those are great points, Scott. Like, throughout this, compliance is still a thing, right? So if you do have those long-term, you got to keep 7 years of data. Or, hey, what about customer data being on a laptop at somebody's house now? How does that work versus, is it staying in the data center and you're just accessing it from home while being in secure VDI portal? All of those are challenges that we're solving for and real world problems now.
Exactly. And for those curious about how to procure all this, from a demo perspective, a qualifying perspective, you have a customer that's interested, we can, from start to finish, we can help along the way of all of those different components, whether it's, a VDI discussion, a backup discussion. And the big advantage of using us with all of this is that you're still getting the same product. You're still getting Acronis, for instance, if that was the backup solution you went with, but you're getting that exceptional support experience that you would expect with us, and that same type of experience on the installation, the same type of experience that you would expect from us when you run into an issue or your customer runs into an issue, depending on who's managing it. And we're trying to consolidate that to make either your customer's life easier or to make your life easier so that you don't have to worry about juggling 5 different vendors and have those different numbers to call. We can quote it, we can configure it, and we can support it post-sale. Now, getting into the fun part of it. So this is going to segue nicely off of the backup disaster recovery piece, getting into, I kind of think of our journey into this business resilience was a little bit, was kind of the opposite direction that a lot of customers go. A lot of customers start with their core infrastructure, and then they get backup, and then they get disaster recovery, and they kind of build it out that way. But we went production, and then we went disaster recovery, and now we're introducing these backup solutions. And we're trying to make this consolidated solution to save customers costs, but also to save them those hassling of having to manage multiple different vendors from a support perspective. So the first promo that we've launched, and many of you may have seen it already, it was a little late into the quarter. We launched it, I think it was maybe a couple of weeks back, which is late when you're thinking about Q4 because of how short of a quarter it is with holidays. But so we're basically bundling this all together, and we're trying to offer a backup appliance. So you think of backup appliance, you think of hardware and software put together. That's exactly what HC3 is. Now we're taking a third-party backup solution, Acronis, which has their own HyperCore built version of Acronis. There's Acronis CyberCloud, CyberProtect, so that it integrates directly with any of our nodes. And we're bundling those two together. And the purpose of this being that we're trying to bundle these two together and offer a very attractive price point, because a backup node or a backup target has a very different use case than a full production, full highly compute NVMe hybrid, any of those types of node that they'll be using in production. So you see the price points of these. I see a lot of folks from Canada on here, and I know Blake's got his representation with the American flag on it. I got some Canada representation with the moose and the Raptors win in the background as well. Sorry for everyone in EMEA, we don't have anything over there, but these prices are in USD. So just wanted to point that out. We do have pricing all across all the other ones. This is just where we build our pricing off of is in USD, of course, because we're an American-based company. And the building of this offer is basically your customer either is getting a 3-node system or 3+ node system with us, or maybe they already have one. They get the Acronis licensing, and we're going to bundle this all together as an appliance, and they get these very attractive prices on these different systems. These are 3 different target systems that we're working with. So the HC1200, 5200, 2 different versions of those, and those are the different capacities that we have. So it's basically 3 different t-shirt sizes that you can do, either small, medium, or large. And you can see it's a very attractive price point for that. And this plays very well. You know what? Actually, just getting to this next slide. Who is this a good fit for? It plays very well into existing customers. So if you have any existing HC3 customers that they probably already have a backup solution, they probably got that when they first deployed HC3. They probably don't know that we can do something like this, and the price point that we can get it to them at. So it's perfect to have a conversation with them, and we can get them fully, if they're looking to refresh their backup solution, easy migration over to our solution, and we can get them a backup node. They can also leverage they would license their production environment. So you'd need, if it's a 3-node system, Acronis is licensed basically per host server. So 3 nodes would be 3 licenses. And then you can use the backup target as that local recovery point. And then depending on what their needs are, there's going to be a large variation of customers' needs when it comes to backup. So if they need to go to the cloud, they can go to the cloud as well. They can go to Azure, AWS. Acronis has their own cloud as well that they can go to if they're looking for more archival, long-term type storage. So we can address a lot of those different needs and maybe make a bit of a more robust backup, a complete backup solution for an existing HC3 customer that might not have had that before. And then there's your add-on. So any prospective customers that you're currently working with, I think this is a great opportunity to stir any stagnant opportunities that you currently have in the works. They're probably looking into a third-party solution, and this could be a good opportunity to say, hey, you should probably check this out. Let's consolidate everything. Let's not go get this third party that you have to deal with. You're going to have extra licensing costs. You're going to have extra support fees. You're going to have extra headaches that you have to deal with. And we can bundle this all into a single platform, being HC3. And then you're still making that good margin for yourself, and you're saving the customer, time and a lot of those time, which is going to be those headaches, and money. And then there's the kind of the reverse engineered approach, and that's the backup attach. And I always, when I first started in anything in sales, it was always that, follow the cable. So you start off with the mouse and you follow the cable. Same thing with backup. When you're having customers looking for a backup solution, make sure to follow the cable. This isn't a real cable in this scenario, but follow it to where that backup's being installed on. Why do they need to back up? Are they refreshing their environment? Typically, when they're refreshing a backup solution, they're also refreshing something else in their environment. So it could be a conversation to get deeper into that with your customer and maybe uncover opportunities that you didn't currently know that they were looking at, and they maybe were going elsewhere for that solution. Let's bring that all in together and let's win it together. And then this was a big one, I think. Internally, a lot of the commotion around, okay, we already have a DR node, and now we're coming up with a backup node. Does the customer need both? Why would I need both? And the answer is kind of, it's pretty gray, I would say. It's a very gray answer. Depending on the customer's needs, they could absolutely get a backup node and a DR node. But when you talk about that journey that they're going on, not all customers are going to need everything out of the gate. Some of the larger, more on the upper mid-market enterprise size clients, they want it all. When they're refreshing everything, they're refreshing it all. They're getting a production cluster, they're getting a disaster recovery site, they're getting some sort of local backup, and they're getting some sort of offsite backup. That we can absolutely do, and they address different needs, both backup and disaster recovery. So it depends on what your client's needs are, but that's the perfect conversation opener. They say they're looking for backup. Well, what exactly do they need by backup? Do they mean by backup? Dig into that. Dig into what they mean by backup. Do they need backup locally? Do they need backup off-site? What are they currently using for backup? Disaster recovery. What do you mean by disaster recovery? Is this mission critical workloads only? Is this for your entire site? Do you need this to be somewhere across the country or across the world? to make sure that you're fully redundant. And those are perfect questions that we can help get into that once your customer says they're looking into these types of things. But we can also coach you on how to qualify these things as well. So feel free to reach out. I love talking through these things together because there's always something to learn, and there's always some scenario that I didn't think of. But when you think of backup and disaster recovery, backup is typically a lot more storage heavy. So your customers' needs are very different in the actual resources that they require. So that's why those backup needs are targeting. It's targeting after a very storage heavy environment because they might be keeping backups of things in for 7 years, video surveillance for 7 years, something like that. It's going to be very storage heavy, but very low compute needs because they just need it there. They don't necessarily need it to be able to spin up on demand and have that, really low recovery time. And then on disaster recovery on the other side, if you have a full site outage, you need that quick, everything's up and running. And it could be the entire environment. It could be just a subset of their environment, mission critical workloads. But now we need these compute resources. So we need to make sure that if this office that I'm in, this house that I'm in, if this goes down, I need to be able to get everything up and running in an instant on the other site so that my end users aren't affected by this at all. There might be a period of time that they're comfortable with. Sorry, go ahead, Blake.
Let's talk about a quick real world example of this. I mean, how often do we look at environments, let's say a customer has 30 or 40 terabytes of data. How much of that is active data that is being used by the VMs frequently? Maybe it's only 10 terabytes. So are we planning on replicating all 30 to 40 terabytes of that to DR? Or, is a lot of that data old data that we need to keep? Maybe that's best kept on, keep it in production, but also on the backup device that's replicated offsite somewhere. But we don't need that living on our DR site. In a DR scenario, I really don't need to access that data. So why would I be paying for all that over there on higher performing disk when I can put it on deeper storage at a lower cost?
Exactly, and that's like the whole point of assessing what their actual needs are for backup and disaster recovery. Because if you combine the two, that's typically going to mean that you're paying, I have on the bottom there, the very last sentence kind of wraps it all up. But if you're combining the two, you're basically paying for more high-end storage for your backup because you're paying for the rest of the resources that are coming with that backup. You're paying for the RAM and the CPU. And you might be paying for expensive type of storage. Maybe it's NVMe that they want for their DR. So you're paying for very expensive storage for archival. And then on the disaster recovery side, you're paying for a lot more of that storage when that is needed for that disaster recovery scenario, like exactly what Blake is talking about. You don't need all 40 terabytes for your DR scenario. Then why are we going to size it all out with a all flash NVMe system in disaster recovery? So we can go smaller with that. And that's where breaking it out a lot of the times makes sense. There's going to be scenarios where combining it does make sense as well. And that really depends on qualifying these questions with your customers. And that's something that we're there to help you out with. So it's very confusing conversations back in disaster recovery, especially if you don't have a technical background, which I sure as heck don't. But I ask a lot of questions, and I openly anybody that has a lot of questions for me, I'm happy to teach you anything that I've learned from any of the smart people at our company, because I did not learn this on my own. All right, moving on from Acronis and the backup appliance. I wanted to talk to you about our Edge trial. We just launched this towards the start of October. And if you go to our website, so scalecomputing.com, on the left side, there's a tab, and that tab will open up and you'll see the different options down here. The Edge trial is about 3/4 of the way down. So that Edge trial will take you to this landing page. And this landing page is we're putting a really big marketing focus around this. And it's as we have this HC3 Edge product, which I'll show you on the next slide, and you can kind of see it racked up in on the landing page as well. But we're putting a big push into this edge computing space. You're going to see a lot of recognition that we're getting for our edge products, our edge functionalities that we've just launched, that we're launching, different things from the roadmap that we have coming out. So we're getting a lot of buzz around this, but it's becoming that best known secret, which we need to stray away from. And the thing is, we need to get this in the hands of our customers, and we need to get them to actually realize the potential that a system like this can have. So we're offering a free Edge trial, and the way that we're doing this is with our partner community. So it's an Edge trial that they can go and they can play with this at their when I say edge, that's typically a smaller site outside of the data center. I don't want to assume everybody on here knows what edge is. If you don't know it, now that I've said it, everybody's Facebook is going to get lit up with edge computing products that they're going to sell. But we're trying to get this into the hands of the customers so they can try it for some of their sites, run their POS system, whatever it is that they're deploying, new applications, IoT type applications, AI type applications that they're running at a retail site, maybe at a bank, any of those types of scenarios, so that they can actually see what this system can do, and they can realize that maybe what they thought they had to do with just commodity hardware, they don't need to do that. They can do it at the same price point with a solution that's a lot more highly available and has a lot more enterprise type data center functionality built into it, and that kind of single management layer that we offer with our multi-cluster management console. Now, how that segues into the conversation with our partners, we want to get this into your hands just as much as we want to get it into our customers' hands. So we've introduced a H150 partner promo, and looking at the slide now, I realize the colors on the bottom right are off and it's clashing, and it hurts my OCD quite a bit, but I apologize for that. But our H150 partner promo, the idea of this is get you a free H150 cluster in your hand. I'm going to throw a huge asterisk beside free, and it is after a rebate. So the purpose of this is what we're doing is you see some of the examples of the chart on the bottom right. Those are different t-shirt sizes. So by no means are they the only ones that we offer. Those are just examples. So you can choose any size, whatever fits the needs of your environment, of your use case, whether it's for testing or for demos or for an actual customer scenario that you can think of. And that pricing that you see on the far right, that's in USD again. So I apologize for anybody outside of the US, but we do have all that pricing available in all the other currencies as well. That's the hardware cost for it. So that's the cost for those 3 units that you see right above it. And that doesn't include the rack, but the rack can be included as well. That is the hardware cost for them, and that includes the first year of support. So that hardware cost is going to be your only upfront cost for it. But what we're trying to do to make this a free cluster for you is that on your next HC series scale sale, cluster sale, I should say, we're going to rebate that. So we're not going to just provide more margin and say, hey, we're going to cover that. The first 3-node system, the small is $1997. We're going to cover that cost for you in margin. No, we're going to rebate that you in a check on the back end to make sure that it goes back to the business, and then it covers the cost of this, and that you can now use this cluster for whatever the purposes that you're looking for. And this cluster can be used in both those edge scenarios. It could be used for those internal training purposes. It can also be used for your MSP type clients. If this is something you want to show to a customer, we have some customers that have these already, and they're taking them on site to their clients. They're pulling them out. They're saying, hey, I'm going to run your infrastructure on this. You're not going to have to worry about it. The nice part is if something fails, it's a fully redundant system. So if something fails, you don't have to worry about it on the weekend. This system is going to recover everything for you, and then anybody can go and swap these systems out. So it's going to give your customer more peace of mind, and it's going to save you a lot of that overhead cost. The only requirement that we have on this, sorry.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick.
Yeah, no, you go.
And I got one of these for, I would take it, I would call every customer I have and say, you've got to see this. We'll bring it, show it to you in person, and set a meeting with every customer I have, because this is something that you can actually take and put in front of them. They can touch, they can see. You're getting the same UI. You're getting everything that a full, data center deployment would have, but it's something that fits in a backpack.
Exactly. And the only requirement that I was getting into is just to get certified on technical or sales certification within 90 days. So very straightforward, very easy to get done. And that's just to get you comfortable on the technical side. It's to get you comfortable with the UI, and it gives you some of that training that we would typically do on a first installation. And then now you've had the ability to go through a full installation, and you can actually use the UI, and you can show them, hey, here's 3 nodes. I have another node back at the office. Let's show you what disaster recovery looks like, and do that live for them. And so the whole realize the potential, that's my kind of tagline I've been going with on this. But it's true. Like a lot of the hard part about this is that people don't realize how powerful these systems can actually be, how many workloads you can actually run on them, especially when you look at the size of them. They're small, but they're mighty. And there's some example scenarios that we ran in our lab and we got up and running. So there was a video surveillance example and Milestone, for those that aren't familiar, it's an application, a video application that we had to get certified for, and we had to meet the requirements of the certification, and we were able to get 50 Milestone security cameras running on a 3-node system. And then on the VDI side, running a 3-node HE150 cluster, we was able to support up to 25 concurrent users. So think about that from like a managed service perspective. That MSP client, you can now run all of their space. You can run them on their own little VDI environment and run all those 2 to 4 VMs, maybe 6 VMs that they're going to need to have running on that system. And they scale up pretty large in size. They do up to 4 terabytes of NVMe and 64 gigs of RAM. So they can get pretty beefy for a single small tiny cluster. So why the HE150 promo? This is kind of just summarizing what we went through. But number one, perfect opportunity for testing. For those that have any new technical folks, maybe anybody that's not fully trained on the system, this is a perfect opportunity to get it in their hands and see what it looks like from start to finish of, hey, I've got these 3 systems in a box at my desk. How do I get them all set up and deployed? And then using that for demo gear. Doesn't have to be on that edge scenario. It could be for that MSP client. Take that MSP client site, plant it at their site, play around with it for a little bit. Once it's living there, we can do an asset transfer. So we know that it's now not your demo gear. It's actually at a customer site. So if you ever needed to get support on it, we're good there. And then you can go get another HE150 system on that side. We'll start billing on the support once that happens. And on the edge side of it, we're using this to build a heat map of our partners that have these clusters in designated areas. So if we have a customer in Toronto, I see some folks from Victoria on the call, Vancouver on the call. I see some folks from New York, Texas. If we have a customer lead that comes in your area, and we want to get with our partners to build this relationship with the customer, and there's no better way of doing it than passing this over to you going on site, installing it for them, showing them how to set up the system, migrating over whatever workloads they want to migrate for testing, and using that to build your relationship as well. And this is going to get us both stickier with this customer and both bought in this scenario. So the third way is opportunity generator. Generate some leads for the both of us. You're going to see a lot of marketing pushes from us around this. You're going to see a lot of edge computing coming out, and we just want our partners to be alongside with us through that. And what type of customers are this good for? I've kind of gone over it, a kind of high level at this point, but really any single server replacement. So you compare that single server with a 3-node system, you're basically going to be about the 3-node system will be around maybe 10% with all licensing fees included in there. And I'm talking Microsoft licensing and such, maybe 10% more than that single server, depending on what price point you're getting that single server at. So very, very attractive price point, but you're now getting 3-node system. You're getting that HA built into it. You're getting that peace of mind for yourself, but you're also getting those built-in disaster recovery functionalities so that you can build on that for other offerings. Whether it be for that retail site, we can provide them with disaster recovery, or for that small client, you can provide them with disaster recovery as a service. Oh, so last Platform 2021. So Platform is the name of our conference. We just kicked it off last year with a small subset of our partners, and now we're trying to expand this out to both customers and partners alike. And obviously, with the constraints of everything that's happening with the pandemic, it's going to take a little bit of a different form. But what we're not trying to do is that virtual conference that everybody else is trying to do. We realize that I've been sitting on a ton of these virtual conferences, and no virtual conference is the same as something in person. We fully realize that. So we're trying to adapt. We're trying to change it up a little bit so that it's not going to be one of those conferences where you're sitting for 2 days, 8 hours, listening to different speakers. So what we're doing instead is we're breaking it out over the course of Q1 calendar year 2021, and we're going to be doing weekly 1-hour webinars. So the purpose of this is to get, you can hear from, just like what we're doing with the solution selling series, you get to hear from Blake, myself, other people within the organization that you don't typically get to hear from. And we want you guys to be part of our vision. We want you to be just as much a part of know where we're going. And so you get to hear from people like Jeff Reedy, He's going to talk about the company path moving forward, what we see for 2021 and beyond. We'll get more to like the product roadmap, where that's going, the solution roadmap, and how we're building that whole ecosystem around it. Service opportunities that we're creating. There's a lot of new exciting things that we're doing with our services, so that you guys can offer more services and you guys can get certifications and such, so that you can build out these different revenue streams on scale on the H23 platform. And then of course our program roadmap, some of those certifications, and where we're going with the partner community in 2021 and beyond. And it's going to be for your customers, for anybody on your team. If there's certain sessions, you don't need to go to all of them. There's going to be certain sessions that are catered more towards the technical, the sales, some that are partners only, and then some that'll be for both partners and customers. And there's going to be prizes that we're going to do for them, some social events, an opportunity to have that fireside chat with people like Jeff Reedy and Craig Teriak you see on the list there. And there's going to be some friendly competition that we're going to do for some different prizes as well, that I think will be very exciting for all. And with that, Blake, I think I said I'd take 10 minutes with my slides. Went a little bit over. Open office hours.
Seems to be a theme for you.
Everybody on this call that knows me knows that that's a thing for me. I like to take the stage and own it. So it looks like you guys have been doing a good job answering all the questions. We'll save a couple minutes here. If you guys do have any questions, we'd love to address anything that we can. If not, you can always reach out to us as well. I guess one other piece that I didn't mention was on the platform 2021, when's that going to be, when things coming out for it? So it's going to be in Q1. It's going to be towards the end of January that we first start it. And you guys will all get notified within the next 4 weeks, I would say. I don't want to hold myself to a tight deadline, because I'm not the one that's committed to that, but we'll get some sort of notification on when to block your calendars off in the coming weeks, and the exact schedule and everything will follow from that. So stay tuned, but starting end of January, and it'll be a once a week hour type thing for throughout the quarter. Any other? Wow. I think we're good. You guys, you did a great job answering all the questions. Well, with that, if there are no other questions, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, svan, 2 N's, at scalecomputing.com, or just general questions, you can send a channel at scalecomputing.com as well.
Looks like we got another question.
What is the NIC situation on the NUCs? On the HE150s you have, so it's a single Thunderbolt cable that'll attach to both, so you VLAN off the public and private. That's a little bit more technical than this audience is typically used to answering, aka myself. If I didn't answer your question in full, then feel free to reach out. And with that, I think we have everything answered. I appreciate everybody's time. We had a really great showing for this. The next version of this, of course, is going to be more like our platform 2021. So stay tuned for another episode or series of this come Q2. And I appreciate everybody's time. It's great to see all the names on here that I'm familiar with. And Blake, of course, appreciate you joining here as well. It's great to get the banter back and forth between us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic.